been a hot minute. I was trying to get out at 7 p.m. right on the dot. It's Ryan Lindley from the Sheeple Shepherd podcast. Welcome back. It's been months since we've done one of our shows. I was trying to get out right on time just to troll Dean a bit, but sure enough, here we are at 7:03. We did okay. Hi, honey.
Not too shabby. Hey,
Right.
how you doing?
There's Ashley Lindley, the co-host of the Sheeple Shepherd podcast. It's nice to see you. You look beautiful and ravishing as always.
Why, thank you.
That's why I give you the shitty camera, because I need all the help I can get.
Right? I showered for the occasion.
That smells like a great idea.
Right? Well, it's funny. I sprayed on perfume and then was like, nobody can smell you.
Yeah, I smelled it when you were heading down into the garage.
It's like, am I going on a date with Ray? I don't know what's going on.
I'm sure he appreciates it, though.
I was really really trying to step it up. And then I was,
Oh, this is good. I'm glad to be back in the chair here. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad we have a pretty interesting topic to talk about. Mm-hmm. And that would be the A.C.E questionnaire that you found. And tell us what it is. Yeah, you kind of fell over it. You tripped over it and realized that, holy shit, this is a Pandora's box to open up.
Well, yeah, right. Like I've got some of my own stuff going on. I think everybody does. There's not a lot of people in the world who don't have some kind of, I think, not mental health problem per se, but we've all been through something. Everybody has a story, right? And I've always been that person where it's like I tell a story from my childhood and everybody gets really quiet and you're like, oh, that wasn't funny. Everybody's sad now.
It's true.
Whoops. And
what is catastrophic for most is Wednesday for Ashley.
Whatever, right? So I was like, I got a lot of stuff going on and I wonder why that is. And then I was like, oh my God, look at how your horrendous childhood can affect your adulthood. So I stumbled onto this test. I don't even know exactly how I found it anymore, honestly. You know how the internet is. It's a rabbit hole every which way.
Yeah, and then we talked about it in the car on the way home the one day, and
I was all jazzed up, right? I was like, You should see what I found. And it's old. That was what killed me. I was like, this has been around like almost as long as I have, and I've never heard of it.
Mental health has been a big topic lately,
yes.
Especially because of COVID, and children's mental health has been a bit of a contentious issue between different sides and opinions on the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And it's just, I think it's a good time to focus on this because there's life outside of COVID. COVID and restrictions and such are horrible to deal with. Kids are kids. Like, kids still have shit they go through every day, which brought me to like the kids like in Ukraine. I was thinking like I'll get into it when we go through the test, but I don't want to leave them waiting. I'm gonna bring our good friend Ray Rauth in as well. Ray, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Ashley, you smell great, by the way.
Thank you. Just for you.
I knew it. We brought Ray in because Ray actually works in the field of social work. He's very familiar with differing issues when it comes to mental health. We're going to stick away from Ray's actual job because that's just ethically the way we should do that. Mm-hmm. But Ray has been gracious enough to come and talk with us and offer a bit of an outside opinion on two idiots like us just shooting the shit about it. So, Ray, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm just going to give a really quick disclosure for everybody, and I'm going to be straight up. I'm going to read this because a friend of mine wrote it for me today. But I just want everybody to know that I am not a health professional. I do not diagnose or treat mental health illness. Throughout this podcast, I will not discredit or endorse any studies completed by medical professionals. My opinion is not reflective of a medical professional, and I will not be giving any diagnostic or treatment advice. If you have any questions about your mental health, please consult with your doctor. With that out of the way, the reason that I'm qualified to maybe have this conversation is I am a social worker. I do have degrees in social services. I'm certified in motivational interviewing. I'm certified in personality dimensions, and I have now 14 years of working with people who suffer with mental health illness for all different reasons. So thank you very much for having me. That disclosure out of the way. Now we can have a real conversation.
I appreciate it. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Again, it's a podcast. We're not sitting in a doctor's office here. We're just a couple of people shooting the breeze. So
I am the first person to say, please, for the love of God, don't go looking on the internet to fix your problems and call a doctor.
Exactly.
Now, mind you, I still found this test because I wasn't calling my doctor and I was doing my own research into things. But like Ryan said, I think that it can be applied to a lot more. So I think that we can kind of look at it in different directions here.
So they break it down, and it's a 10-question questionnaire. We won't call it a test. It's actually just like a questionnaire, and it gives you a bit of a score at the end of it.
All yes or no's.
Yeah, and it breaks it down into these categories. When it comes to abuse, it could be physical, emotional, or sexual. Neglect could be physical or emotional, and household dysfunction, including mental illness, incarcerated relative, mother treated violently, substance abuse, or divorce. Now, is this too general of what? First of all, what is like? What was the purpose? Because Ray, you're really familiar with A.C.E. and P.C.E. What was the purpose? Do you think of this?
So there's always been a relation between childhood events or trauma that relate to what happens with adults. A couple disclosures to put out about the ACE assessment and the study in general. It was done by the CDC. It was done by Kaiser Permanente Hospital, which is a very very respected hospital. But It was a retrospective study. And you have to be a little bit careful with retrospective studies because with retrospective, you start with the answer and then you find the information and the data you need to prove your answer. So your hypothesis is already there. Whereas in a perspective study, you're starting with the problem and trying to work your way to the answer.
Okay.
I think that the ACE assessment, ACE and PCE, which is obviously a positive childhood experience, are very good starting tools for somebody. What I really, and I want to hit this right off the hop, I'm not going to crap all over this assessment, is every tool is helpful. Every tool is you can use to help explore yourself, and it always gives you more of an insight. It's not the end all and be all. I'm happy you're excited about it, Ashley. This just came today, and I debated whether to send this to you or not. It was like literally, I read this 15 minutes before I came on here. But I found a study from King's College in London that did their own studies, which has their findings, and it was published in JAMA Pediatrics. And King's College in London, England, is one of the most respected, research facilities in the world. It had the ACE screening had low accuracy in predicting mental and physical problems at an individual level. And that came out in January 21st of 2021 that study was released.
So that's much more updated.
However, that's why I say that this is still a tool, though. This is not something to be ignored because we know the correlation between childhood trauma and adult issues are all related. And I think where ACE can be very effective and a very effective tool is maybe when you're looking at a treatment plan. For somebody like myself, when I'm doing counseling, of coming up with my counseling plan and trying to figure out how to do that, because I do believe that there have been a lot of people, adults especially, who have been misdiagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, also known as PTSD.
It seems like it's a very loosely based criteria to be labeled with that. Am I correct in thinking that? Or?
Yes, it's a fallback for many doctors. Will diagnose somebody with PTSD, and yes, it will match up with the whatever we're on now, the DSM-7 or whatever the whatever it is, and it'll match up to it. However, the difference between, say, watching your and I'm not saying this, I'm not taking away anybody's experience. I have to put this out here, but when you talk about Ukraine and you're watching people being blown up in front of you, that's a different psychological factor.
Absolutely.
Than perhaps seeing a car accident. However, people who have witnessed car accidents where there were no deaths, no serious injuries, have been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. Right. I'm not saying that it doesn't negatively affect them, However, the treatment for PTSD is not the same for somebody who's dealing with fear and anxiety. I mean, you just look at that little stuffed animal that Ryan's showing on the screen there, they're showing on the screen there, and it's heartbreaking, right? I mean, that it's to me, it's one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever seen, because you know why it's lying there, right? Yeah. And these people are witnessing it firsthand. So I do take exception with the amount of post-traumatic stress disorder clients that I see, who through my working with them, my recommendations, I would say, I'm giving a loose number here, 6 out of 10 times, is perhaps you should go back and talk to your psychiatrist, your psychologist, your doctor, whatever it may be, because you're showing different. I don't know if this, I would question them whether it's post-traumatic stress disorder. Right.
I'm wondering if this, like, where my skepticism, layman skepticism, comes in just from overthinking the entire thing is it must be a very regional approach to this, because of the different things that like, you couldn't apply this to, say, a kid that's in a war-torn region like Ukraine or Syria or like anywhere. It seems very Western, Western focused, just on the, like, I understand these are very serious things. Like, they're incredibly serious things, and our kids are victims of these things every day here in the West. But it almost seems as though, if we're gonna talk about, like, it should be an all-encompassing thing. Like you say, traffic accidents. We've all seen traffic that we can't forget, And does that affect me later on down the road? Did that release cortisol in me as a 6-year-old that screwed something up later on down the, like, it just seems a very, very generalized test.
Yes, and it is. But if you look at it, almost every assessment and any sort of thing you want to is very generalized. And again, and that's why I say this is not just because there's no proof or shows little effectiveness of the mental and physical problems now, doesn't mean our childhood experiences don't affect us as adults and don't affect us both mentally and physically. We know that studies are out there that are proving that we know that mental health and poor mental health on that will affect us physically. It will affect our physical health. I was listening to you, Ryan, on Dean's podcast today, and use the example like, I didn't realize that when this happened to me as a kid, this is what gave me high cholesterol. No, it's not the experience that gave you high cholesterol. However, that experience could have led to other choices in your life that shows that. I was reading a very interesting study, and I can't remember. I could have just been in Psychology Magazine, to be honest, because I know it wasn't an in-depth one. It was just giving you the Coles notes, but it was talking about obesity. And they link a lot of obesity, and this was an American study. They link a lot of obesity to trauma. And whereas for somebody like me, admittedly, I in my past life struggled with narcotics and addiction issues. And whereas I turned to pills, there's people who turn to food.
Yeah.
Right. And that type of thing. And I think that we see a lot of those events happen. Now, one of the bigger problems that we have in the school ages right now, as much as PTSD is being misdiagnosed, childhood trauma can also be confused with ADHD, or ADHD can be confused with childhood trauma. Somebody acting out because of their, look at that. They are. Yep. It's perfect. Very loose diagnoses. So I'll actually, I can give you a really good example right now. My 10-year-old daughter, she'll be 11 in June, is suffering with depression and anxiety, and we've had to. What I will point out for your podcast is how awful it is to try to find children treatment in this province, at least I can say. Thankfully, because of what I do for a living, and I feel awful about it professionally, as I was able to jump some pretty thick ropes and get her some help very quickly. where I know people who are still on 2-year waiting lists to get adolescent psychological help. And, again, professionally, I feel awful, but as a father, I'll do whatever I need to do for my
that's
kids.
it. And this is a pre-pandemic problem as well.
Yes.
Like, lest anybody think that this is something that was born by the pandemic. We've been dealing with this for decades, and Ray, you can attest to that, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. I mean, first of all, system navigation is a nightmare. I work in the system. I've been in the system almost 15 years, and I still get confused while trying to navigate the system, where to go for what. When we, discovered okay, there's actually something wrong with her. This isn't just a kid being moody.
Mm-hmm.
I had to sit back. I didn't know where to start. And just thank God that I know people just, throughout my years that I could only to make a couple of calls. And then someone's like, hey, give this guy a call. And I happen to know who he was. And I was like, could you take this on? He's like, yeah, I got you, buddy. You know what I mean? Like, rubbing shoulders.
It's a dad thing, man.
But I'm going to tell you something. I am somewhat responsible for her mental health. And it's not that I'm a bad parent. It's I made the wrong decision during COVID. And a lot of her anxiety and depression she's dealing with right now is COVID related. So when we first went into lockdown, she was spending a lot of time on calls with her friends, spending a lot of time in her room. Mm-hmm. Where my wife was like trying to force her off the calls, come down and spend family time, watch TV. I was like, hey, come on, this is what's getting her through it. Let her be, let her have the technology. This is what's making them happy. Well, then this goes on for a few months. And then all of a sudden, she started becoming socially isolated and desocialized herself, and then starting having anxiety as they're going back to school. But she no longer had that free flow conversation as a family that we did pre-pandemic, where she felt comfortable to tell us, hey, because we kind of just said, hey, stay in your room. You know what I mean? And where I thought I was making the dad decision, like, hey, let her be. She's with her friends. She's here. She's there. So it doesn't even have to be a traumatic event per se. It could just be a wrong decision by good people that, you know what I mean, suddenly psychologically affects people. Mm-hmm. And 1 year of lockdown we're now years of a lot of hard work and patience. And if any parent out there who's dealing with a child who is dealing with any sort of mental health, the patience is the key. I wanted to explode on her the other day because the attitude that was reaming back, but I knew where it was coming from. And it was just taking the big breaths and walking out. And if you have to take a drive around the block like I did and scream in your car because you need to get it out for you, please. And I do beg, if you are dealing with it, reach out for help if you don't have the support as a parent, because it's it beats you up just as hard as it beats somebody else up. And I'm a trained professional, I had to go speak to a colleague I know, because I'll be very transparent about this. I had to go through assist with my daughter, which is the suicide steps. And I had to look my 10-year-old in the eye and ask her if she was going to kill herself. I cannot.
Wow.
Language parameters here. Okay, good. You keep it.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, I can't tell you how much that fucks you up. You know what I mean?
Dad, I couldn't imagine. Yeah, it's something that I fear because I've got an adolescent girl myself, and the things that they're going through already, and if and it's a fear, it's a nightmare.
And there's things that we don't understand, right? Especially as guys, Ryan. So my 10-year-old's early developer, she started her menstrual cycle when she was 9.
Right.
That's very young from what I've been told and read. And Ryan, we can try to understand what happens during a menstrual cycle, but the hormones, the this, the that, we just don't get it. You know what I mean?
No.
So
and we're all different. Yes. So it's you never know what you're gonna get, right?
So what we had 2 weeks ago was just the perfect storm of collision of 2 of her friends, best friends, that little cliquey group, who said, we don't want to be your friend anymore because you're sad all the time. So she's now being ostracized because of her mental health disorder. And I get it. They're 10-year-olds. They don't get it.
They don't understand.
Yeah. The one daughter's or the one friend's mother told the one friend, well, she just does that for attention. And again, as a father, I wanted to go over and crack the teeth of this mother. But you gotta take that breath and say, you know what, that's probably an answer I would have given 2 years ago. You know what I mean? It's, and then so she was really down. She was already having sort of a bad week with depression, and then she started her cycle all in the same, and this all collided, and it just turned into this absolute just meltdown of emotions,
hormones and emotions, and hormones that overtake emotions that aren't developed yet to deal with it, right?
Yeah.
And it's that's scary. That's a volatile package.
So and the person that she's meeting with, he's out of Waterloo. He's a child psychologist, great guy. I won't mention his name because he probably wouldn't want me to, because what we're doing isn't necessarily ethical by him taking her on. But he met with her for 15 minutes. He met with her for an hour, but he said in the first 15 minutes he linked everything back to COVID. You know what I mean?
Aww.
And I do want to just put one disclaimer on the table, and I'm saying this as a father who is dealing with a daughter with mental health. All Canadian studies, and from the Canadian Mental Health Association and Health Canada, have not linked increased mental health issues to individuals who did not suffer with mental health issues prior to COVID lockdowns. So all the anti-lockdown and anti-everything else, mental health and suicide thoughts increased primarily for people who already were suffering with mental health issues, not the other way. So I'm not here preaching don't lock us down again if we go to 200,000 cases a day. And I'm saying that as someone who's dealing with the repercussions. Unfortunately, my daughter got to be one of the minority who did get affected.
Right.
But so I like to put those disclaimers because people twist words. So I just wanted to put that disclaimer out there.
You're right, because it was such an easy one for people not realizing, and I always thought to myself, are these parents that are as well as politicians that are making these erroneous, like what was his name, Roman Baber, when he was quoting Cam H, and Cam H had to issue official statements saying, buddy, we never said that, when it came to suicide rates. And that was early on. But these groups, they caught on to it, and they realized that it was an easy talking point and easy to grab the ear of people, to use your kids as the here's my scapegoat. This is what I'm going to use I'm going to put them up here, and I'm going to say my kids are. So yeah, I appreciate that from there. It's nice to know, because they were releasing those stats early on, and it's just nice to know that they continued, and it's just a really big reminder for us as parents, pandemic or no pandemic, you need to keep on your kids. Like, we're responsible. Our parents are responsible for the baggage we carry.
Yes,
I've always said that. I've been that way, and I'm responsible now. I hold that responsibility. Ashley holds that responsibility as a stepmom to Kaylee. My ex, same thing, just a fantastic mom, you know, and everything that we did on the outset, and we didn't know what we were doing. We had no idea, but everything was for her. She was not to know about, and we had a pretty amicable separation. She was not to know any of the strife in between. Money issues she knew nothing about, even though both of us were eating hand to mouth, wondering where we were going to get our school clothes money at one point, like early on in her childhood. She never knew. And we made it that way. Mommy and daddy never fight. We still go out for ice cream together every once in a while. Like we did, not realizing until later on, and you see studies like this. I meet guys like you, we talk. Ashley comes across amazing reports to say, like, holy shit, you guys did it right. You did it right from the get-go. And now my kid's a rising star in high school and doing incredible things that she's achieving things I never achieved in my entire life, and she's 14.
Yeah, you and me both.
Yeah, so that's amazing, because you're a minority in that standpoint, right? And you see the effect, and this is where we can go back to ACE. By the way, I was going to come here and brag about my 16-year-old being on auto roll, then you dropped her score on Dean's score, and I was like, damn it. I'm like, I can't even brag.
Well, hang on, she's only in grade 9, so let's...
Oh, no, you're welcome to brag, yeah.
Mine's in grade 10,
more than welcome to brag.
It's okay.
Yeah, exactly,
No,
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, no.
But back to ACE, I'm sorry.
This is where you can bring it back to ACE. And again, this is where I think it is a helpful tool. It's a helpful tool that I hope doesn't get diagnosed or doesn't get dismissed, as useless, because it's a helpful tool when you're starting to look through that thing. When it comes from a treatment standpoint, I'm a big believer in asset mapping. And that's where you can start using things like the PCE and also what you have right now. But so I love what you touched upon though, and I know you want to get into Ukraine, and we will, but I'm keeping this a little bit Canadian for a second.
No, I'm good with I'm good
Yep.
with this flow, because actually I have the
Yep.
questions that I'll put them up and we'll go through them all when you're done.
I would say, we all carry baggage from our parents, and I 100% agree with you. And our kids are going to carry their baggage from us. And,
Yep.
and no matter how hard we try, no matter what we try to do, we're going to fuck up, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're human beings, and
Somewhere.
we're going to do something, but we're dealing with something. And my parents will be the first to admit to me, to say it. We're dealing with something they never had to deal with. And that was the invention of social media.
That's
you know what
right.
I mean? When we grew up, I think I'm a little younger than you, but there was still no social media, even all through, I think when I got to grade 11, that's when MSN Messenger came out. That was my first introduction to social media.
Wow.
And here's the biggest comparison. When I think I was 9 or 10 years old, was the Paul Bernardo trial.
Yeah.
And I knew of the Paul Bernardo trial. You knew of what was going on, but I knew none of the details. I didn't know I didn't learn who Carlo Homolka was till I was in high school. I was a kid. I did kid things.
Yeah.
Last year, I was driving my daughter to school, 9 years old at this time. And we were just doing goofy things where I was doing TikTok stuff. Right.
Yeah.
And out of the blue, she said, "Power to George Floyd." And I went, "What?" And her and I had a discussion about George Floyd, of what happened to him. I didn't even know she knew what happened to George Floyd.
Yeah.
And then she turned around, and so my nephew is black, and she turned around and said, "Is Lance gonna be okay? Because I'm worried about him." This is a 9-year-old. That was not stuff. And I compare her to 5 years, or when she was 5 years old, so just 4 years ago. Okay. She's a little Caucasian, Italian, German girl, and Russian, but we're not admitting that at the moment. But a German, Italian girl. And
Eastern European.
Totally
Eastern
cool.
European. And she was playing with her friend who's a person of color. She's black, and they had switched jackets. And I said, and I joked around, and I said, I'll change their names. And I said, "Oh, hi, Candace, and hi, Sandra." And I switched their names, and they were laughing. "It's because we changed jackets. You don't recognize us."
That's
and
right.
just the innocence of, didn't even recognize that they look nothing alike, different skin colors. To 4 years later, she's worried about her cousin and that he's going to get killed because he's black. And that is something she shouldn't. This is the time to be playing Barbies and playing with your friends and having fun. And I get that kids their age don't play with toys anymore, and it's all about online gaming, but it's a thing that I really had to do. And then I almost had a heart attack last year when my older daughter came and said, "You have to check out Mia's TikTok." And she did a clout video at 9 years old about being abused and everything else. And I had to have a talk with her, and she fully told me it was for clout. I didn't even know, how does a 9-year-old know what clout is? Yeah. And I had to explain to her that I'm going to go to jail if you say that, and you're going to get taken away from me and mommy, and you and your sister are going to probably get separated and have to live in separate group homes if you say this kind of stuff. But that our parents did not deal with that, guys.
No. And I went through this as well with my daughter, and it was a social media, almost a bullying situation in a DM group when they were way too young to be, we thought we had a handle on some things until it was brought to our attention what was happening. It was immediately squashed. The same talk happened about, sharing things, talking about things. And to the point of the innocence, they're not even realizing, because of their innocence, what they're doing is so wrong.
Yeah.
But now you've exposed them by telling them that it was wrong. So now they're able to identify it, which is obviously a very good tool to have in life down the road. But do we need to equip them at 11, 12 years old? Probably not. Like we were when we were kids. Same thing. I remember Paul Bernardo when it happened. Yep. I'm 41, right? So Green Ribbon Task Force was a thing. I remember when they were looking for the guy, but it was very 6 o'clock newsy. If my mom had the news on and I happened to catch it and I wasn't too busy playing with cars or doing something stupid, I didn't really pay attention. It wasn't until later on in life that it's like, holy shit, this is what really happened. So
yeah, we lived through 9/11, right? And
yeah,
it did not have the profound impact on me in high school as I think something like the George Floyd incident, or even the Boston bombings, when there
Yeah.
was this access to social media, had on teenagers then, because we just didn't have that constant exposure to it. And
mm-hmm.
we're now doing things as parents. I don't know if you do this. I don't know if your kids watch. I don't mind, don't, so I can.
She does every once in a while. She thinks I'm lame. She's like, "Who's Dean Blundell?"
Yeah, but my kids are like, I'm like, hey, look, I won. I like walk around. I'm gonna brag something. I'm like, look, I got top video contributor of the year. They're like, great, Dad. And I'm like,
Oh my goodness.
I'm like
Good
14.
job.
I'm like 14,000 video makers are like, cool.
Well, we're
I
proud
have,
of you.
Thank you. I have burner
proud.
accounts now because they've learned how to block me and mute me, so I can't see things. So I've had to build. I had to go online and look up popular anime characters and make all these anime accounts related to these people just so I can see what they're doing on social media. And it's so not only are they carrying our baggage, they're carrying somebody else's baggage now too. And do you want to be the parent to say, hey, you can't go and play Roblox with all your friends, or you can't do TikTok or Snapchat with all your friends when all your friends at school are doing it? Because I think that's even worse.
Yeah,
right?
You're ostracizing them even more by exclusion, not of their own accord, or by social exclusion. You're doing it, and they're self-excluding now, which is
so
can be isolating as well.
Sorry, Ryan.
No,
I'm like Locke. I interrupt so much. I apologize.
No, you're nowhere like Locke. It's okay.
If we relate this all back to ACE now, though.
Yeah. I was actually going to say I'm going to start rolling some questions here and let Ashley get through the questions. But go ahead. What's the relation?
In 5 to 10 years, that 10 question thing is going to be about a 15 question thing. Maybe it's 20 question thing, because you're now going to have to start adding, were you bullied on social media? Because there's a difference between being bullied. If you got bullied in person at school and we were kids, you went home, it was over for the day. Now you're getting bullied in person and on social media. It never goes away. Yeah. And I think that this ACE is going to continue to expand because of the active role that social media plays in society and the impact on kids.
Yeah.
I think it needs to continue to expand. I think it would be crazy not to.
Yeah. As our social societies evolve on a literally minute by minute basis, so should mental health things like this, like we're trying to dissect what's going on and trying to find, this is a problem, this is a solution. If we can't stalemate it, obviously. I mean, so whoever's watching, if you haven't done the test already, it's online. It was in the article that I shared at deanblundell.com. If you didn't do it, that's fine. We're going to go through the questions really quick right now with Ashley, and you can keep track of your ACE score at home.
Am I going to read these for you?
If you'd like, they're on the screen. Question number 1 of the ACE questionnaire.
I don't think I need to read them.
Well, no, because this is an audio podcast as well.
Oh, I guess you're right. Well, question number 1. Before your 18th birthday, did a parent or other adult in the household often or very often swear at you, insult you, put you down, or humiliate you, or act in a way that made you afraid that you might be physically hurt? Yes or no?
Okay, it's that simple. There's 10 of these questions, and we'll get to the end of it, and you can tally up your scores, and we can find out what our scores mean. Question number 2.
Before your 18th birthday, did a parent or other adult in the household often or very often push, grab, slap, or throw something at you, or ever hit you so hard that you had marks or were injured?
One time, my dad, I lied to him about, well, I actually didn't lie to him. I couldn't get the truth out fast enough about a dinky car that I had switched with a friend of mine. We kind of traded for the day, and he thought I stole it from him. And because my dad was actually like an actual fraudster thief that went to prison, he immediately thought that I stole it from him, and he hit me so hard. So yeah, there's one for me. Go ahead. Question 3. Sorry, Ashley.
Before your 18th birthday, did an adult or person at least 5 years older than you ever touch or fondle you or have you touch their body in a sexual way, or attempt or actually have oral, anal, or vaginal intercourse with you.
Can we
For
talk
the
about
love
this
of
one
God,
for a
I hope
second?
not.
No. I'm just saying, can we talk about this one for a second?
Yeah, of course.
So this is from a place of people that like your adult figures, like your authority figures, right? We're not talking about like a boyfriend girlfriend situation where it's consensual, correct?
Well, this is somebody that's at least 5 years older than you, and I think.
Oh, sorry, I missed that part. Okay, right.
Yeah,
sorry,
an adult
I
or
totally
a
skipped
person
that.
at least 5 years older than you. So I think that if you're under the age of 18, you're likely
Yeah.
not dating somebody that's that far ahead of you.
Yeah. Okay.
You shouldn't be.
Yeah, for sure. All right.
Or else we're adding another question to the test.
Question number 4.
Before your 18th birthday, did you often or very often feel that no one in your family loved you or thought you were important or special, or your family didn't look out for each other, feel close to each other, or support each other?
That's a big one. That's a big one that is up for interpretation for a lot of people, I think.
There's a lot. We're going to go through these questions after, right?
Yeah.
I think that there should be a breakdown.
Yeah, because I'm going to break down where my issues arise.
Absolutely,
with this
please.
Good. Perfect. Okay, so we'll get everybody to do the scores, and then we'll go. I'll run right back through them again, and you can give us a breakdown. Question 5.
Before your 18th birthday, did you often or very often feel that you didn't have enough to eat, had to wear dirty clothes, and had no one to protect you, or your parents were too drunk or high to take care of you or take you to the doctor if you needed it? Oh.
Ooh. Okay. Question 6.
Before your 18th birthday, was a biological parent ever lost to you through divorce, abandonment, or other reason?
Okay. Question 7.
Before your 18th birthday, was your mother or stepmother often or very often pushed, grabbed, slapped, or had something thrown at her, or sometimes, often, or very often kicked, bitten, hit with a fist, or hit with something hard, or ever repeatedly hit over at least a few minutes or threatened with a gun or knife?
Wow. Okay. Question number 8.
Before your 18th birthday, did you live with anyone who was a problem drinker or alcoholic or who used street drugs?
Question 9.
Before your 18th birthday, was a household member depressed or mentally ill, or did a household member attempt suicide?
And finally, question number 10.
Before your 18th birthday, did a household member go to prison?
And that's the questionnaire from the A.C.E test. Adverse childhood events. Is that what it is? Experiences. Adverse childhood experiences questionnaire. And with us is Ray, and I appreciate you so much because it's just us kind of navigating through this. And it's funny, as I hear them read out loud, and I did the test, I scored a 3 on this. And I'm like, we can, I don't care. We can talk about which ones they are. It doesn't matter to me. I'm an open book when it comes to that. I had a pretty good upbringing, I think, just because of the situation. Like a single mom, 2 kids. She worked a shitty job. She literally, like, we wanted for nothing while we were living in pretty much poverty. But at the same time, here I am, you know. So Ray, you've got some issues, or some I wouldn't say issues, but maybe some concerns about the way these are worded.
No, yes, yeah. So I scored a 4, Ryan, and Ashley. Sorry, I apologize. I scored a 4, and I'm going to actually can't let them talk so much. That's why I keep addressing him.
No, it's okay. I'm telling you, you're the most qualified person on this panel. So
this is why we asked for you to
talking.
come. Yeah.
Yeah, so I scored a 4, and maybe down the line I should have scored a 4 the way they worded it. But let's go back to the first 2 questions are the ones that throw me through the roof. So if we could go back to question 1.
Question 1.
So before your 18th birthday, did a parent or other adult in your household often or very often swear at you, insult you, put you down, or humiliate you, right? Or act in a way that you were afraid that you might be physically hurt?
Right.
Let's take that away. What the hell does being physically hurt or being mentally put down have to do with each other? You know what I mean? Because are you threatening violence against me? Because that's a very different tact than being put down, harassing, that type of thing.
Absolutely.
My father used to swear at me. My father was an alcoholic, and he'll fully open up to this. He was an alcoholic. He used to swear at me. He used to call me, his words were, I'm just saying quotes, I was a fucking retard. I was, you know what I mean? He never, but he never threatened violence against me. You know what I mean?
He was just abusive in
his
he was
abusive the other way. So I scored a yes because of what he said to me, but I feel like to me, if he was also threatening to hurt me and I was living in fear of being physically outside of regular discipline, you know what I mean? Like I was physically disciplined, but not in an abusive way. I can fully confirm that. Outside of a spanking, I never felt physically threatened by him. I was more worried about what he was going to say to put me down. That should be two separate questions. You know what I mean?
Agree.
Like that shouldn't fall into, because someone might say yes, but then how do we address both? Right? Because
they do both need to be addressed. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Both things are incredibly serious and nobody should have to experience them, but they do belong in separate questions.
And I'm just going to say that though, yes, abuse is abuse, but how we treat and how we tackle different abuse is different. You know what I mean? It's abuse is abuse, but abuse can be sexual abuse and mental abuse. There's different things that come with that. You know what I mean? There's different traumas, different experiences. And then question number 2, if we could get to that one.
Before your 18th birthday, did a parent or other adult in the household often or very often push, grab, slap, or throw something at you, or ever hit you so hard you had marks or were injured?
So I answered yes to this. As I just told you, my father didn't physically abuse me, but one time he was in a drunken thing and grabbed me and ran me into the corner of a desk and must have ran me 4 times into it. I was about 12 years old, and he put marks in my back. And I mean, I was in pain. It hurt a lot, and I had gouges in my back from it. And it never happened again, and it never happened before that. Right? So
Similar
we're talking,
with mine.
So we're talking about consistent abuse, and then
a one-off,
right? So I have an issue with that, right?
Because I also have a one-off experience, and it's I can't in good conscience say yes, because I wasn't consistently beaten on a regular basis by any means, and I never feared for my physical health, really.
Is what they were looking for, though, and just an open forum question, is what they were looking for where it was so it stuck out so much to you that it stuck with you, and as you went into adulthood, where it caused you some sort of some sort of apprehension towards something because of that event. Is that what they're going for?
Yes.
We all remember the event, right? Everybody here just
vividly. I remember the Love Boat was on the TV when I got smacked for that stupid dinky airplane. The Love Boat. I remember the Love Boat being on.
That's terrifying on its own.
Right.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I totally get it. I missed the joke. Fuck. So mad. But
it's a hard podcast to laugh during.
The Love Boat was on. It was. Yeah. We used to have one of those converter, not a remote. We had a converter box with the wire.
Oh my God.
And
look at you.
And we only.
I was born in 1990. This is freaking me out.
Sorry, but yeah. So what do you think, Ray? Like that one's too generalized, or it's too separated within itself.
It's where it is. And I see a couple of comments from Danielle and from Clarice who are saying, my ACE assessment was more in depth and broken down into subsections. That's an assessment based on the ACE assessment. The ACE assessment is the 10 question questionnaire. That is the ACE assessment, right? So, Yeah, and I do. And again, this has been my issue. So I'm kind of happy that somebody took this and did break it down into subsections and go a little bit deeper into this. But yeah, I think that and this is where the fear of these sort of questions come, because if you go back to the intro, it was like, oh, Ashley found it. She was all excited about it. It's like, hey, we found this thing. Look, our childhood screwed us up. And it's like, yes and no, because really I should be probably a 3, not a 4. You know what I mean? And that's going to change how we go about treatment. And absolutely, we're going to remember that. But I also remember putting Lego together. Like, I have vivid memories of stupidity of me wrestling with my stuffed animals in my room. You know what I mean? Like, that's the things that we remember from childhood.
Now, are those the PCEs you're thinking about?
I wouldn't even consider it a PCE. Maybe the Lego. But the wrestling with my dog is just something I remember. I'll just embarrass myself just to say it. I remember being 10 years old. Maybe this is an ACE. I remember being 10 years old, and I had a dog, a stuffed dog, not a real dog, right? That's mouth open, had a tongue. And that's how I practiced French kissing when I was 10 years old. Do you know what I mean? Is that an ACE? Is that a PCE? Or is that just an event in my life that I remember? I mean, I think about it now as an adult and go, oh, fuck, Ray. You know what I mean?
You might want to talk to somebody about that.
Yeah, no, but it could, you know what I mean? Like,
you can be honest, this was 3 weeks ago.
It was like a week ago.
Yeah, we talked about this.
My wife was upset, and I was like, "I'll figure it out, honey. I'll figure it out."
So the dog's under the desk right now. I know it.
I'm gonna watch some Tucker Carlson. And
I still own the dog. I still have it, actually.
Do you?
But yeah, it was a gift. My grandmother got it from me when I had surgery when I was 2 years old. I gave it to one of my kids. But yeah, so I have vivid memories of just nothing when I was a kid. You know what I mean? I have
same with me.
Yeah, so I think we all remember things. You know what I mean? And we're going to remember the bad, we're going to remember the good, and we're going to remember the indifferent, right?
That's true.
So I totally get it. Yes, we remember. I just say that memories aren't always. I would say that I have more traumatic memories as an adult than I do as a child. You know what I mean? That have probably affected me in the last 10 years more than they did as a kid, which is weird. I've had, now the biggest difference is, I think what they're getting at, and the biggest difference when you look at the ACE, is how we coped with things. Now, Ryan, you were very open with your piece on deanblundell.com, so I'm going to speak to that if I can.
Yeah, I was just going to say, before you do, you've revealed your ACE score. I've revealed mine. Ashley, did you want to reveal yours here, or do you not want to reveal it here?
No, we all put it out there.
All right. What did you get as a score?
I have an 8.
Okay. So this is where I think a bit of perspective comes in, especially to what you just said, Ray, about more of your things happened as an adult than as a child. I tend to agree, even with what I went through and broke down in that article about what happened with me. But I agree with you. I still to this day say that most of my most burnt in images of horrible things that still to this day give me agita is shit that happened when I was an adult. Ashley, on the other hand, had quite the childhood and quite the adolescence. So it was, and this is what gave me the skepticism of this thing entirely anyway, just because of how loosely based it seems. So,
and again, it's why it's a tool, right? So let's look at that comparison. Let's look at the 8 in the 4, or the 3 in the 8.
Okay.
From a total layman standpoint, I could turn around and just say, like, oh, well, Ryan, you had a pretty good childhood, and Ashley, you had a pretty shitty childhood. However, without sitting down and having a conversation with the two of you, I can't really make that diagnosis. I don't diagnose, by the way, according to my disclaimer, but I can't sit down and say, like, this is where the trauma comes from, or this is why you are the way you are, or this is what it is, because we need to go more in depth. And what I caution people of is, don't just take this score and then go see your doctor and be like, yeah, my childhood screwed me up. It's not my fault. That's why I am the way I am. That's why I'm obese. Yeah. That's why I drink. It's why I do this. It's why I do that. It's, we can get to that 8. I know people who had alcoholic fathers who loved their father to death and never really see it as trauma, but they would have scored as a 1. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, my dad drank, but he was a sweet, happy drunk and he passed out. That's what I remember. You know what I mean? Like, and whereas, you know, my dad was the angry drunk, right? Like, and you know, would, you know, I was the firstborn and I was the one who ruined his life, right? So that's what I would hear. He's sober now. He's sober now. We're good. But you know, so then we could sit down and again, and I'm just speaking in generalities right now. I'm not comparing anybody.
No, of course.
But we could turn around and say, okay, Ashley, give me your examples of why you scored an 8 for each subject. And you turn around and blah, blah, blah. And then Ryan, we look at your example, which I know of what, you know, why you scored a 3 on 1. And I turn around and go, okay, who dealt with more trauma? You know what I mean? Like it's, and I'm not trying to make the compare. I'm not making a comparison, but this is where it does get very subjective. So what the test is perfect for is actually taking that 8, coming to somebody like me or going to a doctor or going to somebody else being like, hey, listen, I did this ACE score. This is what came up. And I look at it and see where she scored and go, oh, okay, interesting. Right. And then we start from there. And then for me, I would go about it a little bit of CBT and cognitive behavior therapy, do a lot of motivational interviewing. And then my, you know, sort of work plans and support plans that I believe in is asset mapping. Right. And we can start asset mapping. And I'm a big believer in art therapy. And it's if you look at people, the ACE studies and the people who believe in ACE, they also believe heavily in art therapy. So it does tie in with something that what I tie into. But yeah, it can be super subjective because Ryan, you could have scored a 1, but that moment is a traumatic event that can really hurt somebody psychologically for the rest of their life. So
for sure,
just because somebody scored a 1 doesn't mean they lived this happy childhood, right?
Yeah,
just
no,
because
even Ashley brought that up as well when we were talking about this when she found it, and like I think it's a good gateway. Like it's a good conversation starter, I guess it could be with like opening
it's a jumping off point,
jumping off into a mental health examination or exploratory with a professional to go and deal with it. Because I think you're absolutely correct. But like my 3, yeah, I've spoken to people in the past. I've spoken to somebody. I had my own bouts with my own mental health in my 20s, and was able to speak to somebody and work through a lot of the things that I realized. That's why I'm open to talking about it now and open to talking about what happened to me as a kid. It's getting to that point, and I'm hoping that as generalized as this might be, it might be just generalized enough to give somebody that nudge to say, you know what, maybe I do have something to explore here. Maybe I should talk to somebody. Like you hear,
but I do want to throw a word of caution in there,
of course,
as well. And I'm going to speak directly to Ashley, if that's okay, because Ashley's someone who scored an 8, right? And that's 8 out of 10. That's high, right?
It's a big one.
It wasn't a test that I wanted to do well on.
No.
Like damn this high score.
Finally hit the honor roll, right? No,
right.
But just because you're an 8, Ashley, doesn't mean there's something wrong with you, right? And it really doesn't. And it doesn't even mean that you had the worst childhood in the world or that the influence around you were. And I don't know. I'm just speaking in generalities right now. But I don't want you to score an 8 and think, well, there's no fucking hope, because that's what I would
absolutely
think if I scored an 8. You know, I want you to look at that and be like, okay, all right. You know, especially when you're with your spouse who scored a 3, you know what I mean? I can see there's a really easy way, and I'm speaking for Ashley in a hypothetical term right now, but there's a really easy way to go like, holy shit, I'm fucked compared to him. You know what I mean? But and Ashley may not go down that route, but there may be other people that can actually deter people from seeking help. Right. And this is where
too far gone.
Yes.
Right.
Well, no one's going to be able to help me anyways. I've been dealing with this my whole life. Then when someone gets to that point, that's when it starts getting scary, because then the next thoughts are, well, what's really the point of trying anymore? What's the point of trying in life anymore? And then you start going down that route that
you lose hope.
Yeah. And hope is, hope and will are the 2 things that keep us going. So I say it for Ashley, and you having an 8's a great example for everybody else. And I'm seeing people in here saying I scored a 9. That doesn't mean that it's not worth looking into, and it doesn't mean that you're any different than Ryan or I, who scored a 4 and a 3. right? Because I will turn around with a 4. And what I would probably put in, we do this in personality dimensions. We say don't color shame, because personality dimensions, you get a color assigned to you.
Okay.
And I'll explain that on a different day. That's a big thing. But we always say don't color shame. You know what I mean? Like, and whatever. Well, don't number shame here. Just because Ashley's an 8 and I'm a 4 and Ryan's a 3 doesn't mean that, hey, we're so, our childhood was so much better than Ashley's and we're better than Ashley and she screwed up. But it also doesn't mean, Ashley, that Ryan and I didn't deal with serious shit when we were a kid.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So if you're at home doing this right now and doing it with your partner, and one's a 6 and one's a 2, don't be like, see, I told you my life was harder than yours, because one traumatic event in your life can change somebody forever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And like I was saying, I mean, somebody like me, like I said, I was never under threat of being beaten by my mother or anything. And my father was in prison from, I don't know, like 1995 on, and I've never seen him since. But it's just, I can't imagine as a child, if you were living with that fear of like, constantly being beaten and like walking on eggshells, as opposed to like, yeah, okay, my dad left and it sucked, but then we adjusted. You know what I mean? It's like it's going to be a completely different response. So it's about how it's distributed. And I think that, unfortunately, trauma can be too much of something or too little of something, but as the longer that it goes on, the worse that it gets. So like you said, you can have that score because something happened to you once. Mm-hmm. And it's like, but what does that count for? It is, you're right. There's this, it's a very basic jumping off point when you put it that way.
Yeah. And then it comes next, right? Then we start getting into, I love when I'm talking about someone jumps right in. Then you start getting into the CBT, right? You start getting into that cognitive behavioral therapy. You start getting into those coping. You start getting into that coping therapy.
That's where I'm headed.
Yeah, and there's so many different things, and I could sit here right now and make a whack of recommendations. I love art therapy. I perform art therapy on myself. I deal with mental health the way everybody else does. I play with Lego. I'm gonna say that, like, that to me, I just get,
that's great.
Yeah, I get focused in. I got a desk here full of thousands of dollars of sets, and I just build the adult sets, because for an hour or so on the weekend, it just it frees me from I'm not thinking about. I deal with some heavy shit at work as well that I want to, but you know what? Sometimes I don't want to think. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm the football guy on the Dean Blundell Network of all things. I don't want to think about Dean. I don't want to think about football. I don't want to think about podcasts. I just want an hour of I'm concentrating on how do I put my piece together, and that's my art therapy that I use. But I'm not going to recommend art therapy or any kind of therapy to you two, because that's something you need to do through discovery.
Of course.
Yep. And I could never work with either of you because we know each other. But, if you worked with somebody like me, they would start talking like, here's the best way to go about it. Here's what we should do. Or, we need to go through things. And actually, you summed it perfectly, right? Like abandonment to being in fear of physical abuse. However,
I'm not saying both things aren't terrible.
Yeah, and they could both be in the same way. And I think and Ryan and I experienced something. So I'll just be open now, because I told her I was going to be. Ryan and I weren't sitting there going, "Are we going to get beat?" But Ryan and I were sitting there going, "Is Mom going to kill herself?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you go through it. So
yeah, it's something that you can. The way I look back at it, and I don't hold anything against my mom. My mom needed help, and my mom got the help that she needed.
Yep.
And it was like that person never existed anymore. It was a very flash thing from what I remember. But it's hard to explain to somebody that the burden that puts on a 10-year-old's shoulders to worry about the mortality of your parent in that sense. Like, it's not like, there's kids that go through mom has cancer, or mom has or dad has a terminal illness, and like that's, at least it's a little it's explainable. It's hard to, I don't want to take away from that, but it's when it's abrupt and immediate and something that even a 10-year-old can realize they did that themselves. It's
another impact too.
It's one hell of a bag to carry, you know.
It's another impact too, Ryan. And so I had what I call 3 parents because my grandmother lived with me, right? And I went to the hospital when she was terminally ill, and I saw her and she was with me until I was 16. So she was basically a second mother. She was like a parent to me, right? And I went there and I was 16, and I saw her all hooked up in hoses, and it was an experience. It's not.
Oh yeah.
But I cannot explain the experience of going to the psych ward for my first time to visit my mother. And I was, 15 years old, right? So I was at the same age group. It's different. You're prepared for tubes and everything when you go, when somebody's dying. You're not prepared for a psych ward, right?
Yeah. No, you're not.
So again, and the reason I'm going down this road with everybody is because I don't want everybody just to take their numbers and say, okay, this is who I am. You need to attack each individual question in a different way and focus and have professionals. And again, just because you're a 3 doesn't mean everything is great in your life. And I really encourage everybody to talk to somebody, even if you feel like you don't have to talk to somebody, whether, and it doesn't have to be a professional, whether it's just a friend. Ryan, I was listening to you guys today, and I never wanted to jump on a podcast so badly in my life than on the Dean Blundell one today. One about fashion. That's a different conversation we'll have on a different day. But another was
you're out of the club. You're out of the club now. I'm
no,
sorry.
No, we're having a conversation. I'm going on and having a conversation about this. But then we got into men not opening up. And it's a stereotype because women traditionally and outwardly may show more emotion than us. But women don't necessarily share the feelings that need to be felt, right? Like, so we always think like, oh, men need to open up and men need to be open up. Like my wife will be crying and I'll say, what's the matter? And she'll say nothing. You know what I mean? That's not opening up. Just because she's crying doesn't mean she's actually expressing her feelings and actually talking about what she needs to talk about. She's just expressing an emotion. Emotions and feelings are very different things. I don't really care, to be honest with you, as a professional. I don't care about your guys' emotions. You know what I mean? We all have emotions.
Exactly.
Yeah. We all go through happy and sad. I want to know about how you feel. I want to know about what your thoughts are. When you're in the car or you're alone at night and it's dark, what is going through your mind? That's what I need to know, because that's what we need to start mapping out and we need to start figuring out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I really agreed with Lachlan in the sense of, yes, men are afraid to open up, but so are a lot of women, right? That's why I'm encouraging everybody. Just because you're crying doesn't mean you're sharing what needs to be shared. And if you feel like you need professional help, advocate for yourself if you're not getting it. I'm going to give you guys a word. I don't care if you tell people Ray Rauth told me to say this. If you need professional help and you're not getting it, go to emergency and say, I'm in crisis. Use the word I'm in crisis, and they have to see you, and you have to see a professional. Please don't abuse it. But if you need the help and you're not getting it, that's how you can.
If you're in crisis, tell them you are in crisis.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Get what you need.
Yeah.
But speak, talk, because we all, as adolescents, children, adults, we've all dealt with crisis. And no, we didn't see war like Ukraine. They're going to have they're going to be dealing with what is actually post-traumatic stress disorder.
Which is a different category.
Yes, which is a different category altogether. Plus, for some of them that are like 11, 12 years old, all their ACE before that.
I was just getting, and that was kind of what I was saying. Like,
this is what,
already had normal, everyday childhood problems.
Yeah.
Or I shouldn't say normal, but mainstream, run-of-the-mill things that we like lots of kids go through. It's hard to say it like that because it sounds like it's demeaning.
Normalizing it.
Yeah, I don't want to normalize it, but you know what I mean. So yeah, like they're gonna have all those piled onto. Oh, and someone blew my fucking house up, and my dog died, and my mom doesn't have a leg now.
Yeah, and my dad.
I don't have a leg now.
My dad said, "I'll be right back," and never came back.
Exactly.
We don't know what happened.
Yeah, it's tough, and if there's anything that we can get through in this podcast, and I'm hoping this is what it is. And don't get me wrong, it's very important that all of us collectively as adults understand and recognize and can be open and honest about our own mental health, you got to check in with your kids. You gotta really pay attention to, you're no longer just responsible for your own mental health. You're responsible for the mental health of your child to a certain degree. And if you can do anything and everything and I don't care if you want to call it bubble wrap, I don't care if you want to call it cushion, you want to put fucking pillows around it, whatever you can do to not exclude them from a normal upbringing, but at the same time protect them as long as you can from this shit, then that's your job. That's our only job. Once we're parents, that's the only thing that fucking matters. It really is, So I want to thank Ray. Ray, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time. I love you, and I will see you on the Dean Blundell show this week, I'm sure, to chat about some things in fashion. And
yes,
I also wanted to point out one thing before you go on this. I put this up, but we never really touched on it. That entire top line was my long weekend, just so you know.
Oh,
yeah.
You know what? You're right.
For Easter, that was my entire long weekend.
Lack of physical activity, smoking.
It's not
you missed
always
work.
a bad thing.
Yeah.
No, sometimes it can be very, very relaxing. And hey, listen, as a former addict, I do THC therapy, so drugs are not all bad.
I agree.
No, I appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you. Sometimes it's great just not to be the football guy. I appreciated you bringing me on for a heavy subject. And I feel honored that I'm the first podcast back. That's phenomenal.
You know what? I couldn't think of anybody else. Like immediately, the first one I thought of. So you know what? I know Ray deals with this, and I know how passionate you are about things, and I knew that you would be passionate about, even though I didn't even really know what your career was all about until we kind of talked today. It's I knew you would be the guy to talk to, so I appreciate you.
It's great to get a bit of a deeper education on the topic, right? Because like you said, it's such a little jump off point that it's like I needed more background on this. I needed more. Oh no, them's fighting words.
CFL still sucks, so it's okay. I'll leave it with that. Thank you so much, guys.
I love you, Ray. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Take care, buddy.
What a guy.
Ray's great, eh? Oh, he's my favorite.
Yeah, and he's right. It's like, you know what? I hear you.
The best addition we've had to this network in a long, long time.
Yeah, and it's like, I'm not really a sports person, but it's like I've always just enjoyed when he comes on the show and he talks about his stuff. But like, damn, that was something else.
Yeah, it was eye-opening. I'm glad he was
Ray.
able to kind of put us into a different perspective when it came to this, because I think we both had different views of the test, and it was nice to actually have a pro to walk us through it. So,
well, we talked about that yesterday, about whether or not we were on the same page for today, right? Yeah. And then it was like, you know what? I needed a whole different book, apparently. That was very educational.
Yeah, I'm glad. And again, as Ray said, if you're in need of talking to somebody, go and find it. It's so important. Like the stigma of mental health should be erased, and we should just be easy to have these conversations.
Yeah, nobody's too far gone.
He is. Ray is amazing. I'm telling you. That's why we had him on. We do really well at this job.
Yeah, it's never too late. There is always hope for people. You can always reach out. I always tell people at work, seniors always say, like, we don't want to bother everybody. I say, be the squeaky wheel, get your grease. You got to get it. You know, it's nobody else is going to look out for you like you. You've got to advocate for yourself.
Danielle says Ontario has free CBT online or by phone. So and he's
I would really appreciate if you would DM me a link.
Yeah, there you go. And this is what I mean. And Ray said it, as a professional in the industry, how hard it is for even a pro to navigate the services that are available to everybody and anybody. And I'm sure it's in every province. I'm sure Wade and Positive Mike can all tell us. It's probably the same over there. Like, as good as socialized medicine is for us to not have to worry about having to pay a bill at the end of the day, at the same time, it is kind of hard to get through the bureaucratic bullshit. So
yeah.
Honey, I love you, and it's quarter after we've gone over. I'm okay with it, but I'm sure there's other shows that want to be on the network. So I'm gonna.
What do you mean it's not just about us?
So thanks everybody for joining us. The Sheeple Shepherd podcast is back. We will have some cool things. Ashley, what are you working on with your buddies? Tell everybody kind of what you guys are dealing with, so we can get back into like dirt eaters and urine drinkers.
We got a few things on the table right now. Young Living isn't doing so hot as far as selling and shilling essential oils anymore. It appears that the company is actually operating at a loss, so we are collecting false health claims to smash them. Another company went ahead and bought out the stock from Black Oxygen Organics. I'm not going to name them right now because I don't want anything getting too shady, but I may have secretly joined a multi-level marketing company in order to infiltrate it from the inside out.
They invited her.
Yeah, it was great. So I actually
She's like
got
a
a free
ninja.
Membership.
She's like a CIA operative. You should be on Ray or on Spies Like Us.
So I'm not planning on advertising any of it, but if inadvertently anybody does purchase anything from my website, I plan on actually putting the money back into the anti-MLM movement, which is fantastic. And I encourage everybody to go to the FTC's website right now. They are currently open for comments. They are looking into actually taking down the industry another peg. And they want to hear from you about how you've been screwed and the things that you have seen. They'll walk you right through it. It's fantastic. Go and tell the FTC exactly how you feel about multi-level marketing. They would like to hear from you.
It's long overdue, that's for sure. Ashley Lindley, I love you. You are a beautiful wife and a fantastic podcast host, and I will see you very soon. As for me, that's it. That's the Sheeple Shepherd podcast. And thanks to the Dean Blundell Network. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. You can find the Sheeple Shepherd podcast hosted at deanblundell.com. We're also on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Anchor Spotify. Thanks for tuning in.